All right, welcome once again to Abundance Coaching TV. I'm your host. My name is Scott Epp with Abundance Coaching. Today our topic is get committed and get results. What a phenomenal topic, especially as we're moving into the new year. What a great time to start talking about commitments, start talking about the results that you want to have even before the new year. What we often find is that all of a sudden January 31st hits, we have a party. December 31st hits, we have a party, January 1st comes around, and we wake up and we're like, oh, we should start setting some goals. And we start making these arbitrary goals because these are the things that we should have, we think that we should have. And by the end of January, where are those goals? If it was a goal, for instance, to lose some weight, to go to the gym, are you actually full on going to the gym January 31st? If it was a goal, for instance, to spend more quality time with your family, or to do a certain activity, or not do a certain activity, where are those goals January 31st? So what a great time to start talking about commitments, start talking about goals before January the 1st. So here we are. The topic of the day is commitments. And I have an interesting tool that I want to share with you to begin this show, but I want to tell you really quickly about two of our guests. The first guest that we're going to have on our show is Jerry Anderson. And Jerry is somebody that I really sought after to get on this show because I believe that he is fully living in values and principles. I don't just know that, I witness it, I see the evidence of it. Jerry has also been able to accumulate a lot of businesses and a lot of wealth through those businesses, and he's been able to actually do some incredible things through values and principles, and through the principle also of commitment in these organizations, businesses, and he's a world changer. The other guest that we have on the show is Dr. Dave McClure. And Dr. Dave is somebody that I also think has incredible passion, great values, great principles. He comes from a sporting background. He actually used to play for the University of Pittsburgh. And he has a great story about sports that we're going to talk to him about. But he's also the founder of Global Entrepreneurs Institute. And we're going to talk to him about that organization and what they're doing to change the world as well. So as you probably recognized as you've watched a lot of our episodes, if you haven't yet, subscribe to our updates. And all you have to do that is just go to the right on this page and just put your name and email address. And all we send you is updates and refreshing information about abundance coaching, what we have to offer with the new guests and the new people and the thought leaders that we interview on this show. Our intention with this show is to have valuable content that is inspiring and people that are thought leaders on our show that want to make a difference and that are making a difference. My intention is to help you connect with your authentic, amazing self, so that you can live with more passion and that you can have more abundance in life. So just go to the top right on this page and take a moment, just put your name, email address in there, click submit, and you'll be just updated to our update list. The principle of commitment is something that's really important to me because I used to look at just goals. And maybe I'm like you because I used to just set goals and then target results. And then I'd set more goals, and then I'd set more actions, and then I'd target more results. And sometimes what I found is that at the end of the goal, as I did the actions, it wasn't exactly that gratifying. I wasn't that satisfied with the results in the end. And I've reframed myself to actually understand some things and understand the principles that go along with goals. See, I believe that goals actually are under something else. They're under commitments. And I want to show you something here in a really neat diagram that I think will really make a lot of sense for you. We just have commitments over here. And the illustration is that of an umbrella. And if you see an umbrella, kind of looks like a Flintstone umbrella there. But if you see an umbrella, what's the purpose of an umbrella? The umbrella is a covering. And of course, the purpose of the umbrella is to cover over. Is to cover you, of course, from the elements, from the sleet, rain, snow, etc. And typically on an umbrella, you'd have a handle. So I want you to use this analogy and just go with me with this analogy for a second. And this is the commitment umbrella. So of course, as I was saying, the umbrella is the covering. This is the hierarchy. This is what covers over, all right? It's not goals that's the covering, it's commitments that are the covering. And then I want you just for a second, ask yourself 2 questions. And these 2 questions are, how committed are you? I'll just do C for the word commitment. How committed are you? And then the other question is, what are you committed to? How committed are you and what are you committed to? And I can guarantee you that if you actually get a grasp on the answers to these 2 questions, that you'll firmly be able to hold the handle of this umbrella, and it will be the covering over so many things in your life, and it'll make a massive difference. So let's break this down a little bit. How committed are you? What does that really mean? I'll let you ask yourself that for a quick second. How committed are you? Could be to anything. Could be to your marriage. How committed are you to your marriage? How committed are you to your health? How committed are you to getting that vacation that you always wanted to and actually committing to it? Could be 1,000 things that you're committed to. But what's your anchor point? What's the thing that you actually know that you need? How committed are you to finding that first date if you're single? Or to finding the right spouse? How committed are you to launching yourself to that new direction? How committed are you to really making your business a lasting and fantastic success? How committed are you to finding passion and really stepping into that passion? How committed are you to leaving a legacy? What you may find is that where you thought you were committed, you're partly committed. And what I found for myself, and this is the pit, is that even for my coaching business, that I stepped halfway in at the very beginning. And part of it was because I didn't think I had the credibility. I didn't think that I had the credibility to call people like Jerry Anderson, that's going to be on our show a little bit later, and say, hey, Jerry, come be on my show. That wasn't even a thought that crossed my mind. I wasn't established enough. I wasn't credible enough. I wasn't this, I wasn't that. It was called limiting beliefs. But when I stepped in and I got committed and I said, hey, listen, this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. And I have people now that are following me that are just like, hey, I want to watch your show. I want to be part of what you're doing. You're part of something that's world-changing and something that's amazing. I could see that you're going somewhere. I want to follow what you're going with and what you're doing. Because I've stepped in and I've said, hey, I'm committed. I'm committed to this process. So I'm deeply committed. And I'm not just, if I put a percentage on it, I'm not just 20% committed. I'm all in. So when you know that it's the right thing, and back to episode number 2, if you don't know that it's the right thing, maybe watch episode number 2 where we talked about passions and we talked about your why. And we talked about what it is that actually drives you, motivates you to actually establish what the why is for you. Maybe you need to go back there if you don't know what it is. However, if you know that there's something that's deeply ingrained in you that you need to commit to, how committed are you? Ask yourself that question. Be honest. If you're 80% committed, what is stopping you from stepping all in? So that's my challenge for you. All right, the second part. What are you committed to? All of us have commitments. Could be commitment to a certain job. Maybe it's the wrong job. Perhaps you're overcommitted. Maybe you're a parent and you're running after your kids 1,000 different directions. Your head's spinning off and it's not the right thing. Maybe it's making a big move across the country. Maybe it's making a move to a different country. How committed are you to doing what you know is important to you? And if you don't know what's important to you, once again, you can go back to episode number 3, which is what matters the most to you, talking about your core values. Figure out what's important to you because it's part of this process. But what are you committed to? So if you take some time for yourself and you draw a little umbrella like this, draw the handle of the umbrella and ask yourself these 2 questions, I guarantee you that you'll come up with some really interesting results. But spend some time, reflect with yourself, ask yourself the hard questions. Because only with hard questions do real results come. I love this quote. It's by Dennis Waitley. The reason most people never reach their goal is that they don't define them, learn about them, or even seriously consider them as believable or achievable. Winners can tell you where they are going. what they plan to do along the way, and who will be sharing the adventure with them. There's a big difference between winners, the people that win and actually share the adventure, and the people that don't win, that don't get to share the adventure. So do you want to be somebody who plans your goal, that plans your time, that plans what you're doing, and makes the commitment, that makes what you need to have happen? So I challenge you to go forward with that and take up that assignment. Jerry Anderson is with us today live. Hi, Jerry. Welcome here.
Scott.
All right. Awesome, man. Cool. I can shake your hand right here on TV.
All right.
Sweet. So welcome to the show. This is awesome. It's a privilege for me to have you as my guest. And Jerry, you have succeeded in a lot of ways, but you're incredibly humble. And I just know that about you because I've had the opportunity to get to know you. And part of the reason why I know you, Jerry, is because I am a Global Priority Certified Trainer. So I was certified with the Global Priority Certified Values and Principles a few years ago, and I have to tell you that I've been using those very frequently in my coaching with lots of clients and with incredible success.
Wonderful, Scott. Well, they're there to be used for sure.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So we're going to get a little bit more into what you do with Global Priority in a bit, but we're talking today about the principle of commitment. And just a little setup, you've had great successes in business and you've had some failures in business. Would you enlighten us a little bit just with your past 25 businesses you started or operated in your life?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yes, Scott, it wasn't always like that. I mean, people look at me today and they say, oh, wow, you've started all these businesses. And yeah, I have, but I've had a lot of failures too. I think back some 30 years ago, 35 years ago, close to 40 years now. Yeah, wow, time flies. So close to 40 years ago, starting my first business, I remember like it was yesterday, the first business, and of course it failed. And so then I talked my wife into the second business, and I went into the second business, and it failed. Now that business took everything. I mean, I know about loss. I know about taking the house, the car, the furniture, everything in life that I thought was so important. And I remember now, a couple of years later, of talking to my wife. Her name is Jerry. We've been married 44 years. I remember talking to Jerry, one more chance, honey. Let me try it one more time. And that was probably the hardest sale, was the third time with her. But I remember, Scott, after that business was going 3 years and it was failing also, I had all the things that I thought it took, that I read about. I had commitment. You're talking about commitment?
Yeah.
I was committed.
Yeah.
I mean, I committed everything to it. I committed time and resources. And John Schrock, our founder of Lared, told me a Global Priority, he said years ago, he said, when you go into business, it's a season that you got to pour everything that you have into it. And it's a season like a farmer has. A farmer has certain seasons that he's got to pour everything he has into it, all the family has into it. It's like a harvest time.
Yeah.
You can't let the crops just lay on the field because, I think I'll just take off for the day and let's go to the beach. No, there's a season that you just pour everything. You're committed with everything that you have and everything you own and all the time that you have. I had that. I mean, my life was committed to that business. And then the second thing I had is I set all these goals. You were talking about goals, and I had goals. I wrote them out. If you don't write them out, of course, how do you know when you're going to get there, right?
Yeah.
I had the goals, and I was committed, and yet this business was failing. It's like, and to face the third failing business. My friend John Maxwell, he wrote a book a few years ago called Failing Forward.
Yeah.
Anybody that's going through that or just went through failure, it's a great book because it shows you that, hey, failure is, I don't want to say it's popular, but others have failed before us, and others have failed behind us. But the key is just fail forward. Fail forward, and then get yourself back up and go again. And that's what was well, anyway, I was committed. I was pouring everything I had into it. I had so much passion for that business. So if you look at it, you'd say, wait a minute, he had passion, he had goals, he was committed.
Yeah.
Still wasn't.
What was the difference? What did it take?
Here's what it was. A friend of mine who became my mentor, his name was John Schrock, founder of Global Priority. he sent me this little book that Bernie Torrance put together, and it's, I got one right here. It's called Wisdom for Today's Leaders. And all it was is John took the book of Proverbs and he classified it like you would a newspaper. He put all the Chevrolets together, all the Fords together. I mean, he classified it. You know, if you look at Proverbs, King Solomon, the wisest man to ever live,
yeah,
he jumped around a lot in his verses. You know, one verse can be talking about money, and the next verse about family, the next verse about prostitution. You know, it just so. But Bernie Torrance, and sometime you should have him on your show. He's an incredible trainer and teacher, and you know Bernie.
Yeah, for sure. He's awesome.
Awesome. So he took this book and he classified all the book of Proverbs, and he sent this book to me. And so when I received it, it said Wisdom for Today's Leaders. I want to be a leader, and I want to lead by wisdom. So I carried it in my lapel. Every time I had a problem, I would go to the index and I would look at what King Solomon said about that. So if it was money problems, I'd go to money, wow, page 13, and there's all the things King Solomon said about money. If I was developing my employees, page 26, wow, there's what King Solomon said. So he all classified. If I had a problem, there it was. There was the answer.
Awesome.
Scott, maybe about a few months later, I could see some changes in my life. I could see that the things that I was pouring in my business was changing. Now, it wasn't the business was changing. This is the point I'm trying to make with everyone that's on the line tonight. My business didn't change. My employees didn't change. I had the same accountant. I had the same people that I was selling advertising to. I was in the newspaper business.
Yeah.
I had the same employees, the same product, same. But what did change? What changed was the leader changed from I was developing myself inside so that I knew how to be better on the outside.
Awesome.
And, you know, John Maxwell wrote a book recently. It just came out in October, and it's called The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And it's personal growth. Matter of fact, he talks about our organization in there. But growth is everything. I mean, to be a leader is great. I mean, we all want to be leaders. But before we have leader, we have to have personal growth of our own self. And that's what this was doing for me. When I started going through those principles, principles like goals, principles like attitude and hard work and dependability and responsibility, things that just made life work. Wow, I seen my wife differently. Scott, I seen my children differently, my employees. I think the biggest one was the people that I was doing business with. Doing business with car dealers. I would sell them advertising, and I'd sell them a half a page or a page advertising. And I remember my thought going into meeting with these guys was, I hope they buy today. As a matter of fact, I was reading books like Psycho-Cybernetics and all those, you know, mind books, Think and Grow Rich. And,
for sure, yeah.
And, you know, one book I read, I remember it saying, you just got to think it. So when you're making your presentation, you think, yes. And pretty soon, because you're thinking yes, he's going to say yes. You know, crazy stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
But what started happening is I understood it wasn't about my business.
Yeah.
It was about his business. How can I help him and his business become successful? And when I help him become successful, that helped me become successful. My business, my life totally changed, Scott. Matter of fact, I got 5 or 6 other business guys that was going through some struggles, and I said, listen, I don't want to seem like a good businessman. I want to be one.
That's awesome.
And would join me, and every Friday morning we would get together for 1 hour. It wasn't a Bible study. It wasn't a prayer meeting. It was we got together to talk about values and principles in our lives that could help us become a better business person.
Awesome.
Totally changed. My company went from this to this. We went, Scott, to a 40% profit margin. I'd like to have that again today.
Awesome.
I believe God was just putting his arms around me and say, okay, now I'm going to blush your socks off just to show you that you're on the right track. Now, that was nearly 40 years ago. And now I can say that I look back at that time, and that was the time that all the things started to work that I had in place. I had commitment in place, I had goals in place, and that's when things just started popping. You know, it was like pop here and pop there. We went from a little company to a mid-sized company. We grew all over California, from like maybe a dozen employees to 150 employees. And then a company from France came and bought it. And that's when, as you know, my story, I moved, I looked at, okay, what's next, God? And I felt like I was supposed to be close to my mentor. So I moved from California to here in Ohio. And so anyway, the rest is history. But,
awesome.
You know, it is wonderful. But, you know, it's like we first of all, we need to develop ourselves and be committed about developing ourselves. I think I was reading John's book, his recent book, Maxwell, and it talked about the commitment of every day. You know, and you look at the success of his, and those who don't know John as a writer, he's wrote, I think, like 70 books. He's the #1 author in leadership in the world. And John, I know his life. I know that every day he does like 5 things every day, the same things. And every day he tries to add value into people's lives. Every day he's reading and researching and trying to do personal growth. Every day he files all the information that he's reading that says, oh, that's good, oh, that's good, oh, that's good. Every day. So his success, he tells me, he said, Jerry, my success is every day I do 5 things. I read, I file, I talk to people to learn from them, I try to add value into others, and there's one other thing he does. Everybody has 5 different things, but he said it's like chopping a tree down. He said, you know, if every day I go out and I take 5 licks at a tree, someday that tree is going to fall down.
It sure is. Yep.
He said, I think this the same way. He said, if I make a decision every day, I'm going to take 5 things that I'm going to do it right, that's going to help me develop into the person that I want to be, that I'm committed to that I'm just not going to start it, but I'm committed. And I love this time of year, Scott. You know, this time of year, I like to take a yellow pad like this, a legal size pad. I've been doing it for 20 years. I take a legal size pad, and I take 3 pages.
Okay.
The first page is business. And I write all the things down that I want to see accomplished in 2013, maybe some things that didn't get done in 2012, and some things that I want to see get done in 2013.
Awesome.
What I found about that, if I don't put it down in writing, good chance it's not going to happen. Then I take the second page and I write down what I want to do with my family in 2013. My wife and I's relationship, what are things that we didn't do last year that I missed out on, that I see maybe lacking in my life? My personal things with my family, my children, my grandchildren. What are things that I can pour into their life? How can I add value into my family? And then the third one is what has God called me for to do in 2013 that I didn't do in 2012 and the years before? That's great. 2013 for me is important, so I want to write down those 3 things. I want to write down what I want to do in business, what I want to do with my family, and what God has intended to me to do.
I'm just going to pause you there. That's so powerful. So, you know, how wise that is to take a sheet of paper and, you know, for you, they're watching. You know, maybe this is a perfect time of year for you to be watching that, and just take the 3 sheets. What a great plan to set that as a course of action. I have a conversation every single year with I have some clients, Jerry, that are with me consistently, and year after year we do the New Year's call. The New Year's call is always kind of like, yeah, okay, let's frame what we're going to do for the year. Let's set some targets. And I'm not a huge fan of SMART goals, but they work. There's another technique that I think is better, but we're not going to get into that at the moment. So what if you actually did some of this stuff earlier than the year? Would that work? Is that why you do it earlier than the beginning of the year?
Well, I do it because, I don't know, we're so prone to it. After the first year, I'm going to go on a diet. After the first year, I'm going to go to the gym. After the first year. So I don't know if that's what took me there, but for years now I've been doing that. And what I'll do is, like, once a quarter, I'll pull that yellow pad out and I'll take a look at it to say, okay, what are some of the things get me back on track? And then I'll follow through and make sure I'm leading. Now, what is surprising to me, it's kind of surprising, is how at the end of the year that stuff has come about. And you know, the Bible tells us to put it down in writing, to set your goals. I mean, God has been pretty clear about that, and say, hey, if you don't put it down in writing, why do you think it's going to come about? If you put it down in writing, you are able to watch it come about, and then what that does, Scott, is help us build for next year. So 2013, when I'm sitting in December, I can look and say, wow, God, you did this. Look at this. Look at my family. Look at my business. Look at all the things that we accomplished. Oh, my goodness, I can give him praises. 1. 2, it builds my character. It builds my faith for 2014 then, that, wow, look what I did now in 13. Look at what I can do in 4. I can put that in down paper. So I am building for the future.
Awesome.
I'm building for the future because I can look at what I said last year and what happened this year.
Awesome.
It's been amazing to me.
That's awesome. I have a great question. I'm going to throw you with this one because I know something about your life that you might not know that I know. When I was out in Ohio, your wife told a fantastic story about something that I just thought was really enlightening. And for me, it was a story of how you stepped in and you were committed to something. And first of all, if you put 3 plugs in for John Maxwell, that means that you have to get him on the show for us.
Okay.
So John, you're going to watch this, eh? And you have to get on the show.
Because I'll tell him, hey, there's this show that you got to be on.
It's Abundance Coaching TV. You'll love it. Awesome.
You know, he may come on. It just hit me, Scott. I know how to do it. You email me.
Okay.
Say, I want you to do this because he's looking for coaches. Because you talked about legacy.
Yeah.
That for him to be successful in his life, it's to leave a legacy. Now, how can a guy like John Maxwell leave a legacy?
Yeah.
It'll be coaches like you and coaches that like you have on your show that says, wait a minute, I'm a John Maxwell coach, that he could die tomorrow, but his stuff will go on.
Yeah.
So, you know what? He may come on just for that reason.
Awesome.
So, hey, I'm going to talk to him.
All right. Fantastic. Very cool. So stay tuned, everybody. John Maxwell's coming on. Jerry said.
And tonight he's going to be on, so don't miss one.
That's right. Yes. Make everyone. Awesome. So my story that I know about you is that you were committed to buying a jet and to also buying an upgraded jet and to also getting your what is it, your ticket, your license?
Yep.
To actually do that. But you had to do it in such a tight time frame. You had so many days to do it. And my understanding from Jerry, your wife, is that you got to fly with John Travolta and some other people during that process. But what she told me is that you had set your mind on what you wanted, and there was no way that you weren't going to get that.
Okay.
Do you want to share that story?
I would love to. Now, it starts by a couple things. Number one, I've been a pilot for 15 years. Never thought in the world that I would be a pilot of a jet or ever own a jet. Okay, so let's clarify that first. Number one is jets were out of my picture, way out there. This is never going to happen. And I got to tell you first is that God had a plan for me. God had spoke to me 4 years ago, 2 years before I even seen a jet, that I'm going to buy you a new jet. And that sounds crazy, but I was at a meeting, Scott, and I can only tell you the short version. Short version is a guy walked up to me and said, hey, there's 4 things I want to tell you about. One was this, and that was true. I didn't know how he knew that. Secondly, I had some lawsuits against me, and he said, hey, you got some lawsuits against you, and they're going to be taken care of. Don't worry about them. Third thing, hey, you got somebody stealing from you in your company. And I found out 3 months later I had someone stealing from me. Fourth thing he said is, hey, you bought 3 buildings, and you've been worried about why you bought those 3 buildings. God knows why you bought them. They're going to be fine. It's like, so the last thing he says, then God's buying you a new jet. Now, the reason I say that to everybody, and a lot of people may say, hey, this guy's crazy that you got on your program tonight. I'm just telling you the facts.
Yeah.
The facts is that someone told me that had a credibility with me that God was going to do this. Now, that made it a little bit easier when 2 years later, some guy calls me on the phone and says, hey, I want to buy your old airplane. Oh, wasn't for sale, but okay. 2 hours later, a guy calls me and says, hey, we're selling these jets, and we bought 40 of them. 2 of them's coming in this month, and we can only use 1. We'll give you a deal that you can't refuse on it. I'm not looking for one. Now, this guy called me out of the blue. 2 hours after that, a company that had owed me millions that I never thought that I would ever see, wasn't counting on it, called me and said, by Wednesday, you're going to have your money. So in 6 hours, Scott, I sold a plane, bought a plane. Now, that's the plane story. I don't know if my wife told you that, but it's like, that gave me the belief that I could do it. Okay. Now I'm at school. I'm going through this. This is where I met, you talked about John. I met John over there in school. He's in jet school, just like I was at jet school.
Yeah.
I am committed to school. Scott, I am studying my brains out. I've got flashcards, trying to memorize all this stuff. I am, listen, if there's anybody that doesn't deserve to be in a jet, hey, I had a hard time getting through high school. And my wife is with me, Scott, and I put this on memory cards, flashcards. She's going through the flashcard. In 2 nights, she memorizes everything. Now, how could she remember that? I know nothing. And she's got every one of them. I got 100 flashcards, and she's memorized every one of them by the second night. And this is not fair. Anyway, the 7th night, Scott, I'm on the floor crying out to God. What did I do? Oh my goodness, I sold my plane. I got a plane that I can't fly. I can't do this. Poor me. Now, about that time, my phone goes ding. It's a text. And what goes through my mind is, oh, God's texting me. I mean, that's truly what I thought. Now, we got people out there, Scott, to listen to this, think this guy you got on tonight, Scott, is crazy. Anyway, It's a text from Ohio Christian University. And here's the question they ask. Do you know anybody with a jet? Now, Scott, I'm laying on the floor crying. What did I do? And now about this, and someone texts me about, do you know anybody with a jet? Yeah, why? Is my answer. The university says, well, we have an opportunity to get in Mike Huckabee into our university, but only if we can get him a jet ride from here to New York City in October. Now, this is in July. Now, I've always wanted to meet Mike Huckabee. I've respected him. I love his programming. He was a pastor. He was the Arkansas governor. He ran for president a term back. He's a great man. And I always wanted to meet with him. And it was like, here's what it is. When you're doing what you're called to do,
yeah,
and many of your listeners are called to be in business.
Yeah.
Business is a calling. It's no different than being a pastor. It's no different than being a school teacher. If you're called, hey, you're called to be in business. Now, I was called at that moment to be a pilot because God said, ding, do you know anybody with a jet? Well, yeah, I got a jet. Why? Fly Mike Huckabee. Oh, yeah. What that did for me, it gave me hope, belief, and inspiration that, yes, I can do this.
Yeah.
That's what goals are so important. When we write down things and they come about, it gives us hope, belief, and inspiration that the next goal that we set, that we can make it, we can accomplish it.
It's awesome.
What happened with that jet, for me to get my typewriting, to be able to fly that thing, only God does that kind of stuff. I want to say to all your viewers, Scott, the mind is developed incredibly. We are gifted.
Yeah.
We are gifted as people. That there is nothing that we can't accomplish once we set our mind to it. If we're committed, we set our goals, and we can start to believe that we can do that, whatever that is, you watch our mind carry out that procedure.
That's
now,
awesome.
If it's not believable, then of course it ain't going to happen. But it's got to be believable, achievable first. I mean, we heard all those words from all the great book writers of the past, Think and Grow Rich and all that stuff. No, it is so true. Our minds can accomplish so much if we just have belief. We have the heart that, hey, we can do this.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things, Scott, I think in the United States that I'm working on, we can't wait for Washington to make a change in our nation.
Yeah.
We expect the Democrats to do it, the Republicans to do it. No, we got to do it. We here in the United States, we in Canada, we in Mexico, we around the world. If we're going to change our nation, it's going to be you and I doing it.
It has to be, yeah.
I think about, what do you have in your hands right now? What do you have in your hands that can make a difference and add value into others? What do you have in your hands that you can use? So many times over the last 20 or 30 years, Scott, I'd come back from 20 years now. I've been traveling around the world, teaching values and principles into the workplace. We call it a ministry. You may call it a. We work with governments. We train 400,000 military folks in Colombia.
Yeah.
We're with the Supreme Court in Guatemala, training judges and attorneys, and what we're training is bringing values to the workplace. And I was in Brazil recently. We're working with the Department of Justice there, the Department of Education. Yeah, this is like the Minister of Education, the Minister of Justice, the Police Academy, which they have 500,000 policemen throughout the country. And the guy that brought me there, Scott, I think this just goes right down to show commitment.
Yeah.
The guy there was searching for something on the internet to change his life. To change, he's seen his wife and him and his teenagers going like this. And he's searching for something he could bring into the family, and he came alongside of globalpriority.org.
I've got to pause you right there, Jerry, because there's something that hit me for somebody that's watching there. It's like an inspiration. There's something that you just said that might have struck a chord with you. You know, is there something that just you need to confess for yourself, that you're searching for your family? Like when you said that it's just that motion, whatever it is, if this is family for you, that there's like, you know, it was over here and it's going this way and you're in a searching mode, I think that what you're about to say, Jerry, can really impact somebody over there. So yeah, that just came out. Go for it. Yeah.
Oh, so and he gets online, he gets this stuff, and he prints it out. Now I think it's in Spanish what he prints out. So now he's got to take it to Portuguese. So he really works hard on doing translation. And he has some other people helping him. So he gets it translated, and now he takes it to his family. 1 hour a week, he meets with his wife and his teenagers, and he starts to see transformation. He starts to see change. He sees change in his wife. And they've been married for 30 years, 25 years, and he sees change in her to the best. He sees change in his teenagers, and he sees the growth in his own life. He decides, wait a minute, I want to take other family members, aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors, business associates, and he starts to see change and transformation take place in these people's lives. And he gets online and he meets the president of our organization in Colombia. His name is Jesus Ortiz. Jesus is a businessman. He tells him, and they start meeting like this once a week on Skype. And Jesus starts to tell him what's happened in the last 20 years in Colombia, that many businesses across the Colombia is using global priority, that the government's using global priority, and the educators are, you know, he's training young people in schools with global priority. And so this guy says, you know what? I'm going to change Brazil.
All right.
So he goes and he meets with the Department of Justice. He meets with the Minister of Education. How does he get in front of these people? I don't know. He gets in front of them, tells them about this organization, Global Priority. He gets in front of the department that cleans up, audits all the other departments, audits the education, audits the military, makes sure there's no corruption. Calls Jesus, hey, listen, I've got meetings set up for these departments. Would you come? So Jesus says, Jerry, would you go? Yeah, we'll go. So I thought I'd go to Colombia first. Now, Scott, I'm in Colombia. The day before we go to Brazil, we get a call from the guy from Brazil, and the guy says, hey, you need to rent a car because I don't have a car when you get here. Oh. Matter of fact, I don't have a driver's license. Oh. Wait a minute. You don't have a car, you don't have a driver's license, and you're going to bring us, and we're going to talk to the Minister of Education for Brazil? This guy was some big
courage, man.
No, we get there, and sure enough, he doesn't have a car. We have to get a car. We have to get a driver. But he put us in front of these people, just like he said, and every one of those said, wow, this is what our country needs. We need values in our classrooms. Our kids are not getting values. We need attitude, hard work, dependability, responsibility. We need it in the workplace. Before we left there, we did a seminar for the police academy, and they wanted to look at it so they could take it to every police officer throughout the country, 500,000. We did it for the Department of Justice. They had 3,300 employees.
Wow.
And they said, last month, we've been looking for something like this. This is incredible that you're here. The Department of Minister of Education said, we've got to have this in the schools. And the audit team said, we need to audit, but not only do we want to, spank somebody, fine them for being corrupt, but then we want to have them go through something so they can change their life. So this is now, the point I'm trying to make with all this is this. What do you have? And I'm talking to Scott's audience.
Yeah.
What do you have?
What do you have?
What do you have that you can use to take whatever it is that God has placed in your heart? Whatever it is that you think is so big, it's not too big. When you have a passion, you're committed, and you set a goal and you put it down in writing that this is what I want to do. You watch that come about. I can tell you story after story. When people get committed and when people have a passion and they become believable themselves, you watch transformation take place.
Oh, man.
Unbelievable.
You're on fire. You're on fire.
What do you have in your hands? No excuses.
That's right. It's like, do you have influence in your hands? Do you have leadership? Do you have the gifts of help? What do you have? Do you have a crazy vision or dream? Is there something in your hands? What a great question. So, yeah. And I loved how you reframed it back for the audience to stop and ask themselves what they have in their hands. So probably they're stewing on that question. Usually people do. She's like, okay, well, I got something in my hands, Jerry. Okay, I'm picking up what you're throwing down. I understand. There's something in my hands. But really, how do I get this that I have in my hands, my passion? And how do I actually see my passion and make it a reality? Can you weave somebody through that? Like, how do you really do that? From passion, I got something in my hands, to reality. How do you weave somebody through that? Okay. It first starts, I believe, with really understanding and starting at the bottom. Sometimes we always want to start at the top. I'm this, so I want to conquer this. I'm going to start at the top, and maybe that's where God will take you. Maybe God will open that door for you. But I think of a guy that I met some years ago. He was a Colombian, and he was struggling like I was struggling in business, got a hold of these values, global priority, changed his life, changed his family, changed his business, became very successful. We lost contact with him for a few years, Scott. And I heard that the guerrillas in Colombia, this is about 5 years ago, because of his successes, was trying to kidnap him to be able to take his stuff, to get ransom. So he ran for his life, and he ran to Michigan, as far as he could go up in Michigan. Now you say Michigan. Now I met him at my hotel where you stayed, Scott. Yep. I met him at the hotel, and he had orange hair. Here's a Colombian with orange dyed hair. And I see him, I thought, man, that guy looks familiar. And he comes over, he said, you don't remember me, do you? And I said, no. He said, I was the president of Lared in Colombia years ago. Wow, Carlos. Well, tell me your story. Okay. He has nothing but a clipboard when he's in Michigan. Mm-hmm. The green card, doesn't have much clothes. He had to flee for his life. But what he knew was that, wait a minute, I need to add value to others first. So what he did is he went into downtown, this little town, about 60,000 people, and he went into the businessman and said, how can I be of value to you? What needs is your business having? Do you have any struggles? Anything that I can pray for? Let me write down your prayer request. Now, that's the only thing he knew. So I'm saying to the point is, what do you know? Yeah. What he knew to do was to pray for others. Mm-hmm. And so he went from store to store to store to store throughout that city, getting prayer equipment. And he would go to the same store, the same day, the same hour every week. And he went and say, hey, John, I've been praying for you for this. How'd that go? Oh, wow, a miracle, taken care of. And God started answering these prayers. Ah, cool. So then he went to the radio station. And he said, you know what? You guys are promoting all day long all this bad stuff on the radio. You need to hold yourself accountable to help put good stuff on the radio. So here's some principles and values from Global Priority. Put this on the radio. So they did. Awesome. Then he went to the newspaper and said, newspaper, you got all this bad news. Look at it. And he showed him every page. This is bad. This is bad. Listen, the guy can't hardly speak English, and he's telling him this.
you need to put this in there, which was global priority, principles of the week.
Sure.
They put it in paper. Long story short, Scott, this guy, because of his passion for making change, is changing a city. He asked Global Priority to come up January the 13th, I think it is, the coming year, January 13th, to speak to the school board of all that area to bring Global Priority's product to junior high, antivirus, to the public schools.
Awesome.
This is going to change the Michigan schools, and he's Colombian, can't hardly speak the language, but he's got a goal of changing his environment. And the point I'm trying to make is he's doing the only thing he knows. He knows that prayer works, I'll do that. He knows going out and talking to people, I'll do that. I know that I can go to the radio station and say, hey, you ought to do that. I mean, he's just doing the thing you know, but just being bold about it. So my answer to that, short answer to that long answer that I just gave, is what do you know?
Yeah.
That's the key. Most people know what to do. They just don't do it.
Awesome. That's so cool. Well, Jerry, we could speak for hours, but we have to wrap up. I have another guest, as you know, Dr. Dave, that's going to come on. I want to really just give you an opportunity to just share about Global Priority and share some of the things that are really on your heart and some of the missions that you guys have. I know a lot of people from Global Priorities are on the line right now and maybe watching a little bit later. And also for the other people that are watching here, you need to know about Global Priorities. I know for myself that I went to take the training because I just wanted an extra tool in my repertoire, because I think that as a coach, I need to be equipped, because people are coming to me with all kinds of problems, all kinds of situations. And it's not just that I don't have any passion and direction. No, these problems and situations are like, listen, I don't have direction. I don't have anything. And they feel like really low, or else there's big time crises going on in their life. And values and principles are what can help you wind yourself through those different things. And I needed another tool, and I ended up finding 40 to add. And many of my clients that watch this show regularly, you know that I love the tool boundaries, because that's just absolute. When you understand boundaries and the knowledge of being able to set boundaries, that's just a phenomenal tool, because then you all of a sudden realize, just like, oh, well, somebody stepped over my boundary. I just had a conversation, Jerry, yesterday with a client, and we talked about boundaries. And, you know, if the boundary's over here and you know that you clearly set it, then you know why it is that you feel off, and you know how to stop whatever it is from continuing on. So the values and principles are huge, but I want to give you an opportunity to share what's on your heart. You told me a little bit about what it is with antivirus, but go for it. Tell the audience what's on your heart with Global Priorities.
Sure. Well, Scott, as I mentioned, 20 years ago, I was conformed, changed, transformed into knowing and understanding that I need to change this first. I need to develop my character. And that's what I love about your program. That's what I love about what you do, Scott, personally, is because you're adding value to people all the time. That's what you do. If you say, if I think of Scott, I think, Scott, he adds value to others. So
thanks, man.
To add value to others, we need to be the best that we can be first. And what I learned was that I needed to start with me. So Global Priority is a free, where you can go online, Lared, it's globalpriority.org or .info, either one. And every week there comes a principle. And the way that principle works, maybe it's on goals, maybe it's on attitude or hard work or savings or whatever it may be. There's 40, like Scott said. It's 1 hour a week with 5, 6, 7, 8 different people. You know, people like in your family or your business associates, or I've done it with my grandchildren. I've done it with my children. I've done it with business associates. I've done it with my employees. We make it mandatory in our company. We've got, my daughter's running one of our companies, 500, 600 people, and she's made it mandatory that every employee 1 hour a week goes through this. And it's small groups, 8 to 10 people, and it's 1 hour. It's where they talk about it, and they learn about the principle, and then once they understand what the principle is about, what's the benefit? Why would I want that principle in my life? And then the characteristics of that principle. That is, like, who do I know that already has this principle? You know, like maybe they think in life, you say, who did you know had a great attitude that you want to be like? And your mind starts thinking, oh, my grandmother. My grandmother had a great attitude, regardless. So they got to face with what attitude looks like. And then how do you rate yourself? So every week I'm rating myself on a principle. I'm a 4, and I'm terrible at this. I got a terrible attitude, or I'm a 7, you know, whatever it is, it is. But then how can I increase that 7 to an 8? What am I going to do this week? That's holding each other accountable. That's what I love about coaching, is that a coach is holding people accountable. That helps us. I mean, it's like having a workout guy with you. You know, if you want to accomplish great things, you know, get yourself somebody to work out with you, or someone that's an instructor. That's when you really start growing.
Yeah.
Coaching, you know, when you get a coach that's saying, hey, pay attention here, hey, that just brings to mind to make that change. Well, that's what 1 hour a week will do. And it's free, it's online. That thing it just has, I think we're in 71 nations is what I heard last, Bernie was telling me, 71 nations. And it's with governments. We're working in Nigeria, believe it or not, Nigeria. The president of Nigeria said we want to change from the top down. We don't want to go from the bottom up in our nation. We want to change from the top down. We're working with John Maxwell in Guatemala. Guatemala is a special nation to us. God's got it all in our minds. We want to come alongside a nation like that to bring about transformation. What if everybody in that nation, from the government to educators to business to the church to the family to the finances, to the media, all of them started thinking about values and principles and how to live and how to help each other, what could happen to a nation?
Awesome.
Wow. So we got a team of people that wants to come alongside nations to see if we can't add value to a nation and change. And we can all get it free right here. And hear you talk about it, Scott.
Oh, man, that's so awesome.
Scott, I wanted to say, too, is that because of that, about 10 years ago, we got involved in universities. We're in some large university. One university is Central America. It's 155,000 students. Another university is 65,000, where 65,000 students are required to be able to graduate. You have to have 1 semester of these principles. They've seen the success of that off the chart. Well, that encourages us to take it into junior high and senior high. Yeah. So in Colombia, 5 years ago, we started a project called Antivirus, and it's bringing values and principles to the classroom. And just this year, here in Northeast Ohio, we've got 8 public schools that's taking 1 semester through the year at 6th grade through 8th grade, bringing values to the classroom. We're seeing getting rid of the bulliness. We're seeing adding value. We're seeing respect from the student to student, respect from student to teacher. And, you know, it's what we need in the nation. And so if there's anybody out there, any educators, hey, you know, let us know. We want to come alongside and help others change their world, whether it's in Canada or U.S. or Australia. We want to we want to add value to wherever they're at.
Awesome.
Scott, thank you for this time. It's been great to be on with you. And as I mentioned to you before, I would love my daughter to be on here, our CEO of our company. She's one of John Maxwell's coaches, and you know Dawn. She does a whole lot better about this stuff than I do. You talked about the sore subject that I have, and that's boundaries. Entrepreneurs don't like boundaries. It's like, hey, let's go, you know. But when a company gets to growing, you've got to have boundaries. And that's why I backed out. It's one of the reasons I backed out of my company. God's taken me to other places, and I'm doing stuff all over the world. But Dawn brought boundaries to our company, which made it a much stronger company. And so when you talked about boundaries, her and I were just talking about it today. It's like, oh, yeah, you have to keep on reminding me. And now tonight, you got to talk about boundaries. But,
you know what? That's for me, that's the principle that I've brought up more than any other principle in my coaching. So and you know what? I'm sure that there's a few people that are on right now. It's like, yeah, Scott, I know we talked about boundaries.
That's right.
That's awesome. Well, Jerry, it's been a pleasure. I got to have you on the show again. This was just way too rich. We could have talked for 2 hours here, but it's been such a pleasure having you on this show.
Hey, thank you, Scott. Thank you for all your viewers, and I really appreciate what you're doing. We need more of this across the country and across the globe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know what? I said it earlier, but, subscribe to the updates, because really this is life coaching TV that makes a difference. My aspiration is to interview people like Jerry on this show. Why? Because I know that coaching, and by listening to people that are mentor type people, and Jerry's that kind of person, where we can learn so much. There's a wealth of knowledge. There's a wealth of information. And once again, Jerry, I told you next week this is about legacy. And legacy, like, are you leaving a legacy behind? So you'll get updates when you subscribe by email with topics like leaving a legacy and creating an abundance mindset and things like that are really powerful. So thank you again, Jerry, and we're gonna have to leave now, but we'll have you on again.
Hey, and you talked to Dr. Dave tonight. Tell him Jerry said hello. You're getting the best here.
All right.
He has got it together. He is touching the world right from Dover, Ohio.
He sure is. I look forward to interviewing him. All right, buddy. Catch you later. We'll talk soon. All right. Wonderful. What an interview. What an incredible thing that we just watched there. And what an incredible man as well. Just to be able to just have Jerry on our show is just so inspirational. And we do have about another 20 minutes that we're going to be with you yet. And our next guest that we're going to have on is somebody who's also a sports enthusiast. He used to play with the University of Pittsburgh as a quarterback. So he's a college football star. And in addition to that, he is the founder of Global Entrepreneurs Institute. So wonderful news that he's going to be on our show as well. Now, Dave, you have an incredible story. I got to hear the long version of this, but it's so good. I want you to share it for our viewers, and I know that there's people here that are actually from the Global Entrepreneurs Institute that are watching us live or will be watching the replay. But you have a great story. You were a quarterback for the University of Pittsburgh. So tell us a little bit about that, and then tell us about some of the things that you realized as a result of being a quarterback, too. You have a great story. Go for it.
Well, to make a long story short, Scott, I've been telling that story for probably 15 years now. And each time I relive that experience and that season in my life, I have new insights into what makes me tick and what helps us to really pursue our dreams. And it really started out with a passion in me. And I really believe that our passion is buried beneath our pain. And I had a passion in myself that it wasn't to be a champion. It wasn't to win a national championship. Those were goals that I had. But my passion was really to hear my father say, "Well done, man. I love you. I'm proud of you." And I had a relationship with my father that my father was always there driving me, pushing me, but he never really told me he loved me. And so when I left for the University of Pittsburgh on a 4-year athletic scholarship, my passion was really to hear, "Well done." Hear my dad say, "I'm proud of you." And so that drive in me became goals in me that really weren't my goals. And so that pain of really just being the best and wanting to be the best, just to hear my dad say, "Man, I'm proud of you," was what drove me. And so I spent 4 long seasons. I went to the University of Pittsburgh in '73. It was the first year that freshmen could play in Division I college football. And, of course, Tony Dorsett broke onto the scenes that year. He was the tailback on that team. And so we had 4 years of, it was called a major change in Pitt football. And Johnny Majors had brought to the University of Pittsburgh, it was the losingest football program in the country the year before. They were 1-10. And so in 4 years, they call it the Cinderella team, because in 4 years, Johnny took a loser to a championship, to a national championship in 4 years. And I had the privilege of being on that team and being in that program with people that were just amazing athletes, amazing individuals, and people that were committed at different levels. We talked a little bit about the level of commitment that people have. Mm-hmm. And I saw commitments at different levels. People that came into the university that had a goal all their lives was to be a professional football player. We had guys around the team at the university. Pat Crochief is an example. Pat ended up being the owner of the Philadelphia 76ers. He was the president the year that Iverson took the Sixers to the championship. And so Pat was actually a trainer on that football team. So I got I had the privilege of being around individuals that were just developing that have become world changers. You know, Tony Dorsett, Johnny Majors, Pat Croce, Matt Cavanaugh was the quarterback of that team. And Matt went on to be a quarterback for, I believe, 3 Super Bowls. And he coached the Ravens to the Super Bowl championship. And so I was always around these athletes that had this drive and this commitment at a different level.
Yeah.
Because my commitment wasn't in athletics. Mine was really my commitment was, man, do the best I can so Dad can say, man, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And my other goal, which really affected my level of commitment, was I really wasn't in it for football. I was in it for an education. You know, I wanted to be a doctor, a medical doctor, or a dentist. And so my level of commitment was completely different. And so it panned out after 4 years of striving to be the best with a different motive, which is really key in a commitment, is what is your motive to your commitment, you know. And so my motive was different than some of the guys on the team. And so over the 4-year period, that level of commitment really panned out, because when my number was called, when I had worked my way up to the number 2 quarterback our senior year behind Matt Cavanaugh, and I was literally sitting on my helmet on the sidelines because I didn't play a lot. We didn't really blow teams out that year. We had some pretty close games. But when Matt Cavanaugh was injured, I was literally sitting on my helmet looking around, and my head wasn't in the game. You hear that so many times.
Yeah.
That you got to have your head in the game. And my head wasn't in the game. So when I ran out, you talk about a convergence of everything in life coming down to you. And it's amazing what runs through your head, where I was literally the number 1 quarterback on the number 2 team in the nation. And that impact on my life just changed everything in that moment. I said, because you have a season, you have a career, and you have a moment. And that when that moment came, I wasn't prepared, because first of all, the level of commitment that I had in my life wasn't to the level that I needed to perform that day. And so when my number was called, I had 3 plays. And the big times you get 3 opportunities, and the 3 plays really were kind of endemic of my life for 30 years. And so the message that circulated in my mind, and I think that message is so key, is really a message that I have, is we all have a message inside of us. And my message was, that's good, but you can do better. That was my dad's drive. He would always say, man, that's good, but you can do better. And so to me, it became, man, no matter what I do, it's not good enough. And so the message became, man, no matter what I do, it's not going to be good enough. And so I lived with that message all my life, most of my life, until I understood that I was living a lie. And I challenge everyone that's listening tonight is are you living a lie? Are you a belief? Do you have a belief in you that isn't based on truth? And so over the past 30 years, as I recognize the lie, and that's why I'm so passionate about transformation, is the pain that it caused in my life really showed me that lie was really a belief that wasn't true. Yeah. And all my actions and all my desires and beliefs were really based on that. And so transformation it comes from a renewing of the mind, a new mindset. And that's why I love working with the principles that Jerry was talking about earlier. The principles really is a new operation system that you download based on truth and facts. And when you operate out of a level on a foundation that's indestructible under pressure, because I say at some point in life, if your foundation isn't built on principles, then your building is going to rock and quake when life comes at you in a strong way.
Oh,
I love that one commercial they have on television where the young man is swinging on the swing, and then his dad's pushing him, and then the next one, it's a little bigger son, and he says, life comes at you fast. And that's so true. And so with my 3 plays, basically what happened is my first play was my play, I dropped the ball. And I said literally what mattered most in that moment was out of my hands. And so it seemed for 30 years, everything that mattered kept slipping through my fingers out of my hands. And so I left the university feeling incomplete. We went on to win a national championship. And for 30 years, I didn't wear my national championship ring. I didn't believe that I was good enough, that I had no part in that. But as I look back on it, I was just living a lie. And so when I went back to talk to some of the players, my wife Fonda had encouraged me to go talk to some players. And Jerry was talking earlier about, I had really just been learning about having a relationship and talking to God. And God had told me, go back and talk to the champions and see what they had that you don't. And I thought, what do you mean what they had and I don't? Because I felt that there was something missing in me, and if I could just get that one ingredient off of these players. Pat Croce was that he had taken the Sixers to the championship. Matt Cavanaugh was the Super Bowl champion. And so I called these guys that I'd known 30 years earlier, and the doors were open. I really believe that God opened those doors. And so after 30 years, I thought, my wife said, just call them. They'll talk to you. And I said, these guys don't even know who I am. And sure enough, man, I called Matt, and the week they won the Super Bowl, he said, man, come on out. And we talked at Super Bowl headquarters. I went out to Pat Croce's home and spoke to Pat, because I was really wanted to find out what was missing in me. And really what was missing in me was passion. I didn't have a passion, a belief system that was based on something bigger than myself. And when I recognized that these guys didn't have anything that I didn't have, and that's really my message, that all of the listeners out there, that we all go looking for one more thing. We think that if we just have this one thing, if I have this, we have everything we need. We just have to believe and have a belief system that will stand the storm. And that's really why I'm so passionate about the principles and Lared and the program that Jerry talked about, Global Priorities, because you're inputting a new operation system that will weather the storm.
Oh, wow, that's so awesome. You were limited, but because you didn't have that passion and your belief systems as well. And yeah, you're right. You have to believe. That's awesome. And just for the viewers that are just checking in with us today, this has been a series. It's actually called the Vertical Life series. So that's season 1. And we talked about passions and who you are in the second episode. So you can go back to that if you're feeling like, hey, maybe I don't have passion. What does that mean? How does that look? You probably find that would be a really good resource for you to identify what passion is for you. And Dave, that's actually something that a lot of people that I encounter with coaching discover is that they lack passion, or else they don't say it, but there's ways that they actually say, hey, passion's one of those big things that I just feel that I lack. There's a difference between compromise and commitment. Can you describe the difference between compromise and commitment?
Actually, yeah, commitment is really when we're bound to something emotionally and intellectually. We're tied to it. We're attached to it. That's commitment. And with commitment, the opposite, not really the opposite, but the other side of commitment is compromise. And compromise is really a promise or an agreement that you make to really to make concessions. You're making concessions, and a concession means you're conceding. And so you're either committed fully, like Jerry Anderson, you're fully engaged to the cause, or you're compromising. There's no, it's really the two paths that we can take. Mm-hmm. And when you compromise, you're making concessions, and so basically you're succumbing to defeat already. And so Jerry talked about commitment and the commitment that and how he was fully committed and all these things. But to me, it's just one of the components of becoming a champion in life. And championing life is commitment, because if we don't fully commit, and sometimes we don't do that because we're overcommitted. I think you talked a little bit about that early on in the program, that sometimes we overcommit. But a lot of times that's just not being clear on where we want to go, having a clear path. And so we get divided, and so we're half as much as that we can fully engage. And so we really have to recognize that compromise is a killer. Yeah. And unless you understand the commitment and the passion to follow through with commitment, because everyone starts out initially to commitment. That's why we say the Global Entrepreneurs Institute is not for the faint of heart. And so to be a champion is not for the faint of heart. And so a lot of people come into a program, or anyone that initially starts out will say, I'm committed. But unless there's passion behind that commitment, that commitment is going to wane and fade over time.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. And yeah, I have to say that I've actually received coaching from you with the GEI, and you've actually given me coaching, and I just know the person that you are and how passionate you are. I can totally see what you talked about earlier about passion being the one thing that you didn't have. Man, you got it now, I promise you.
Hey man, you know, and from a coaching perspective, I was told after my second divorce, okay, and I talk about pain because I'm a dentist, I'm the pain guy, but after my second divorce, my ex-wife said, "You're not passionate about anything." And I wanted to say, "What do you mean I'm not passionate about anything?" And I thought about it, and I really didn't know what my passion was. So for 2 years, I really asked myself that question, and I encourage everyone, and you probably get that in coaching, what is I'm not sure what my passion is. And I say it's buried beneath your pain. And my passion, really, my pain was never hearing my father say, "Man, I'm proud of you. Well done." He died before he ever could say that to me. And so my passion to be the best at everything I could do, be the best dentist, be the best football player, be the best father, drove me. But Wayne Dyer talks about striving, never arriving, you know, and I would reach these goals. I'd reach one goal and you'd arrive, but you keep striving you set a higher goal. And so you never have a sense of satisfaction, you know, and so when I learned that satisfaction comes from what we do for ourselves, and significance comes from what we do for others. Nice. You know, and Jerry said about bringing value to others people's lives. When I started to recognize, when I became clear on what my passion was, when I was really willing to dig into that pain and say, man, what happened to me and my father? What happened to that? How can I prevent that from happening? What am I passionate about? That I realized that my drive to be the best came from my pain of not feeling like I ever was good enough. And so that drive and that passion is really what helps us to sustain commitment.
That's awesome. That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, we got to wrap up right away, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit more about what you're really passionate about, which is the Global Entrepreneurs Institute, and a lot of your followers and people that are involved are actually watching here. So tell us a little bit about what it is, tell us how we can find you, and tell us about, you know, what you guys do.
Well, the Global Entrepreneurs Institute was really started several years ago with Jerry Anderson and Bernie Torrance and John Shaw. And I had really had heard about the roundtables and studying the principles. And so I began to go to a roundtable, and these principles started changing me on the inside. And so I got a hook in my mouth. I wanted to change. I saw, man, this is something that I need in my life. And so I just, after 2 years of 2 cycles of going through roundtables, I said, man, I want more. You know, that was, Wayne Dyer also talks about the disease of more. I wanted more because I needed more, and nothing was enough, and that not good enough. So I said, man, I need more education. And so Bernie Torrance and I had a meeting one weekend, and I said, what's the formal program? I want some credentials. I want a certificate. I want my master's and my doctorate. Because that driving me is more and more was really the disease of more. Yeah. And so as I've grown and matured, I've realized that you have to have a point where you get off and you say, man, I'm there. I've arrived. Like I hear a lot of the professional coaches say, we're going to enjoy this victory for 24 hours. You know, I heard Alabama's coach say that. So, but the Global Entrepreneurs Institute really was something that I wanted to give back to people because it changed me so much. And so what I wanted to do was take it to the world online. And so we're able to train people through the global priorities, the principles of Lared, and build this foundation of principles that structure it. You know, if you build a building, you start with the foundation. And life begins with foundations. When you have that foundation of these principles, and the next level then is really having a coach or a facilitator for a year. And so you can come into the Global Entrepreneurs Institute by just contacting me at my Gmail. It's Dr. Dave, Dave, McClure at gmail.com, and I can take care of you. We do it individually. We have 60 students right now internationally. We have around 60 graduates. We have 17 international coaches. And it really started with a really desire for me to improve myself, to build that foundation in me. And then I was searching for significance in my life. And now what can I do for others? And so it's a tremendous program in that you have a champion with you for a year that we call it the SEAL. If you have someone that provides support, encouragement, accountability, and love, you can't go wrong, because we really can't sustain change without accountability.
That's right.
And so that's what the GEI is all about.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Very cool. So, yeah, it's been fantastic having you on our show. Dave, you're just a person who's just full of energy, full of life, great stories, but also a man of character. And, yeah, it's just amazing to have you here, and it's a privilege for me to be able to interview you here on our show. So thank you so much for being with us.
Scott, I just wanted to say that you and I have probably known each other for, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And I remember when we first had contact that you were searching and not for sure, but I'm just so proud of you for what you've done. And here you are, you have your own television show, and I'm just so proud of you because you're going for the dream. I see the little sign behind you. I think that says change.
You bet, man.
I've seen a big change in you, and it's like you turned in your 60-watt light bulb for 600 watts, man. So you're shining bright. So thank you for what you're doing.
And thank you so much. I don't just take that. I take that right in. I really receive that. So thank you so much. And you know what the reason is, and this is for the audience, I'll speak to you. The reason is because I got committed to what I feel I'm called to. And just like what you were talking about, what Jerry was talking about a little bit earlier, is what's in your hand. Like what do you have? What do you have control over? And I love what both of you had to share about passion, because each of us has something that we're called to. Each of us has something that we have in our hands. We each have an amazing gift, a talent, something to really just shine in the world. And I love what you talk about too. Champion, you recognize that on my website I talk about champions too. And to be a champion is a huge thing. So I encourage you to reach out, because you are a champion. You were created as a champion. You were created amazing in the first place. Find that thing that just like you got a grip on, that you just can't find as encouragement. And also as your challenge, as I'm setting up our next episode, find a way for you to actually make 2013 the best year ever. And one way that you learned today was with what Jerry was sharing with us. And what he said was, take 3 pieces of paper and I'm going to do this. And just like, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do with your family? And what is God calling you to do? So write down the 3 things: spirituality, family, and life. And what you're going to do with this next year, because it's important. Your legacy is in your hand. So get committed, step in, jump in with both feet. So thank you so much, Dave. It's been a privilege having you here on our show. I thank you so much for being here. I'll let you stay on to the end. I'm just going to sign off with everybody. Just so you know, for the rest of the time, we only have one more episode for the rest of the year, and then we're going to start up early in the new year. And come back to abundancecoaching.ca to see the guests for the new year. But just so you know, we're going to have some incredible people on in the new year. We've already got some people that are signed up with us. They're not posted on the website. Get the updates by going to our subscribe little button there, and all you have to do is put your name and email address. You'll get the updates right on our sheet. And next episode, we'll be interviewing an incredible guy, one of my mentors, and we're going to be talking about leaving a legacy. So you won't want to miss that. And that episode runs live on December 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Until we chat again, live with passion and have abundance in life.